The virtual CISO moment is brought to you by vCISO Services, a leading provider of quality and experienced virtual chief information security officers for small and mid-sized businesses. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. I've got Kyle Cravens with me here today. He is the principal owner and managing partner of Key Resource Group, which is a staffing firm for information technology and security. Kyle, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Greg.
So this is a little bit different than some of the other episodes we've done beforehand, and kind of continuing a unofficial streak. Like last week, we talked a little bit about enterprise risk management. The week before that, we talked a little bit about cyber insurance. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about staffing. So I'd love to hear your story about how you got started and where you're at as far as IT and information security staffing.
Sure. So I'm about 15 years into this and have more recently launched out into my own with Key Resource Group. In my journey, worked really on all facets of information technology and just realized that cybersecurity was something that was not going to diminish in demand. It was only going to grow and really was an enjoyable focus area. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Okay, and so you've been doing this for quite some time now?
Yeah, 15 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's really ranged from staff level up to, CIO level or CISO level placements. Also done some placements in professional services. So some cybersecurity risk management companies that provide services. I've helped them fill out their leadership teams and roles like that.
And you're based in, I'm just looking at your information here. You're based in the South Walton area in Florida?
Yeah, South Walton, 30A, Santa Rosa Beach. Yeah.
So,
from Nashville originally.
Okay. But you're not just focused on that area. You're nationwide?
No, we work nationwide. That's correct.
Okay. So is that anywhere near Fort Walton Beach?
Yeah, we're about 45 minutes.
My kind of Cliff Clavin moment here about my connection to that is that when I was in the Air Force Reserve, we were actually on a trip down to Florida, and we were on the beach at Fort Walton Beach when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And little did I know at that point in time that would start a journey for me, because I was participated in that Operation Desert Shield storm thing back over there.
Absolutely.
So you've got a rather unique perspective, I think, from the standpoint we always talk a lot about in cybersecurity that, and in information technology as well, that it's so difficult to find staffing, to find. I don't know if just how much this is a problem. I know I see on LinkedIn all the time that people are saying, well, we've got a staffing crisis, but then I see also that there are folks that are saying that I've been looking for a job in cybersecurity and IT for months now, and I'm just not getting any traction. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, my first gut reaction, unfiltered, is that the person who's looking that hard probably has some other things they need to resolve. It's something in their interviewing process, something in their resume that's putting up a red flag for them, or they may have a background issue or something that's keeping them from getting hired, or their expectations of compensation can be off. I run into people sometimes who they are expecting too much for the number of years experience, and so they're either stagnated in the current position they're in, or they're out of work and they're just holding out.
Is there kind of a standard formula for the positions that you're recruiting for as far as compensation goes?
Compensation is the most tricky part of this whole business, and it really is not one size fits all. It's a lot easier for me to tell a company what does not work than it is to tell them what they should pay. So I'll give you, for example, I talked to a ISP company recently who shall remain unnamed. And they told me they wanted a level 2 security engineer. And I mean, this is someone who's really going to be architecting solutions. And their target point was 90,000. And I was just like, guys, I can, I tell, well, how long has that been open? Well, it's been open for 9 months. Okay. Have you engaged any other recruiters? Yeah, we did. All they sent us was analyst level candidates. I said, well, sure, because you've got an analyst level salary for this engineer position. So I'm not going to be able to do any different for you. And that's the reality. And that's one of the things, and that's probably a a point you run into is small to medium businesses are going to, and they're not a small to medium, but a lot of small to medium businesses are going to be priced out of some resources depending on what they've got budgeted.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why the industry of the virtual CISO, for example,
That's why you do
exists.
what you do, part of it.
I
Yeah.
do what I do, yeah, and it does help. There's so much of an issue with regards to compensation, I think, on both sides. You probably also, I think you touched on this too, that sometimes there's the unrealistic compensation expectations from the candidate as well too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The hotter the market gets, the harder it is to make a transaction happen. You would think that as a recruiter, you want to be on the hottest thing. But my experience has shown that a lot more transactions, and I'd say hires, in this case, occur when a market is correctly balanced. So there's proper demand and proper supply, but maybe there's a little bit more demand than there is supply. So obviously, someone like myself adds more value in that case. But it's not just crazy hot. When things get too hot, expectations get out of whack, and then eventually things kind of self-correct.
Mhm.
But, the thing I look at too when I look at a candidate is if someone's changing jobs every year and a half, they're probably hopping jobs for money. And so one of the first things I do when I talk to people in the marketplace is I find out, hey, why are you open to make a move? If money can fix the problem, I probably don't want to talk to them much longer. It's probably not the A-list person I'm really looking for if money is the main motivator.
Well, what are some of the A-list qualities that you would be looking for?
Sure. A passion for the work is the first thing. If somebody is continuously going after their own education, if they enjoy networking with other professionals, they're part of some of the big, groups, and they're going to conferences. I mean, that's a good sign that they're really truly interested in the work and they're growing. The reasons that people may want to make a change that I can typically help with is, hey, the work-life balance is off where I'm at. They're expecting too much, or I'm in a difficult situation where they're not taking the security recommendations that I have, and this is going to hurt my career if I stick around in this place because I can only help them. I can only take them as far as they want to go on the journey. Like those are good reasons to make a move or to change. Not generally, hey, I can get $5,000 or $10,000 more if I go and hop on this opportunity. So I try to be really ethical in what I'm doing, and the fact that I'm not just trying to dangle shiny objects in front of people. I want to get to know people, find out what drives them, and hopefully serve them when it's the right time.
I kind of like that because while you were talking about that A-list, I'm thinking of my past career and each one of the job leaps that I made, and pretty much I fit into one of those A-list type categories. So even though I'm kind of out of that space, please don't recruit me.
Right.
but I think that's certainly something that folks need to understand. Now, in writing, I do a little bit of writing on the side as well too. For authors, they talk about something called platform, and platform basically is distilled down simply is how you present yourself on the internet. And so web page or social media and all of that. For recruiting in IT and InfoSec, is the social media presence really important? I know you mentioned a little bit about like groups and such. How important is that in the desirability of a candidate?
It's probably not that important, to tell you the truth. Really, the hard technical skills and the ability to come off as personable and someone that you'd want to work with in an interview process is a lot more important. I think when you start getting maybe to the CISO level, being a thought leader and a market expert could carry weight. When you're negotiating a $600,000 a year comp package or something, I think it helps show that you've got the firepower that's worth it. But anything I would say at director level or below, I don't think it's really that important. But feel free to disagree.
No. That was a
Yeah.
complete curiosity question
Yeah,
there, because
absolutely.
I had no idea about how that works. That's one of the reasons why I like doing this podcast, because I get to talk with people who are smarter than me. So
Probably, well, I don't know about that, but probably for someone who's more engaged in the services business and they're trying to create the niche offering that they have and show the value they can add, it's probably a lot more valuable than for the average candidate. Yeah.
So How has COVID affected the overall recruiting market over the last 2.5 years?
Yeah, well, it's been good and bad. So the good thing is I'm not having as many conversations where I'm talking to someone saying, "Hey, I've got a great job in Atlanta, but you're in Tulsa. Would you be willing to take a look and move?" Getting someone to reorient their life around an opportunity, it's gotta really make sense for that person. And there's a lot more barriers to getting that to happen.
Hmm.
Of course, if you're recruiting in Atlanta, there's probably plenty of talent there. But let's say you're recruiting in Tulsa, let's reverse it, and you're trying to pull somebody out of a bigger market to go to a smaller market. That's hard. But what's been bad is, honestly, it's been bad for compensation, because now what's happening is you've got people who are in, let's say they're in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and they're competing for the same job that the guy is who's in San Jose, California, and they're both expecting to get paid around the same amount. So sometimes the guy in South Carolina is getting paid way too much for the work. I mean, comparison to his market where he would have been. And sometimes the guy in California is either getting priced out or having to come down. So in some ways, over time, I think that'll equalize. But right now, I think that the remote has too much of the market being remote has actually driven compensation way through the roof. Again, it's a good thing if it's a good thing for the industry in the sense that you're getting to grow, but it's a bad thing for companies that can't afford to offer those higher level packages. So it's making it a little bit harder for some companies to stay competitive. And as a recruiter, I've got to be just on it, because now I'm pulling from everywhere, but at the same time, they're advertising their jobs out there, and they can pull candidates from anywhere too, through more passive searches. So the talent pool in a sense got bigger, right, for
Hmm.
a given job, but then candidates are getting, more demanding and more picky about things because they've got more options. So you kind of get into a point where, you're for the hiring company too, your job can be white noise. And so it's helpful to have a partner such as like what I do, who has relationships built, who can go to people and say, "Hey, I think you got to take a look at this one. Here's the work they're doing. Here's why this is a great opportunity. Let me know what you think." Because again, there's just so much noise.
And the whole remote environment now, I think, also has created another flip side, unintended consequence, if you will. I like your opinion on that. Is just to use an example, I have a colleague out on the West Coast that they, for whatever business reasons they have, they don't want someone hybrid or remote only. They want someone who's going to be on site in InfoSec, and they're having a hard time recruiting for
Hard
that
time
because
finding them. Yeah.
what are your thoughts and suggestions for businesses that absolutely need to have somebody on site?
Yeah, I think a hybrid is a good option. It's going to be at a certain career level, it's going to be hard to get 5 days a week on site in this market. But if you're
Mhm.
willing to wait, it might not be a problem. Or, if they're willing to offer an incentive of some other kind, such as, "Hey, we're going to help you get this certification," or, "We're going to do this for you." Not all benefits are lifestyle driven. There can be some professional incentives as well. Um, yeah, it's challenging for sure, but I've seen the hybrid, 3 days on to remote. That generally works.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. I always like to
Sure.
ask folks about what their drivers are for what they do, why they do what they do. And I know you and I have talked a little bit about this beforehand, and that for both of us, we share a common component about our faith being a major driver. I've been very open about mine, how I started in the industry. In fact, my first episode of this podcast is actually a rehashed video that I did at a Christian business leaders conference back in November, I think, of 2017. I titled the episode Genesis, by the way. I thought that was pretty original, not, but faith is a major driving force for me in just everything. I think that if you have the heart of a servant, you're always going to be successful. I'd like to hear a little bit about your faith influence in what you do and what makes you tick in the business here.
Absolutely. Well, that's definitely a huge driver for me as well. In fact, I was in a job where I was well taken care of by the company, and had great relationships. Even had some incentives if they were to sell or when they sell, that I would walk away with enough money to pay off a home or something like that. A pretty nice little package, and just something to where I was comfortable, but I didn't feel like I was in the sweet spot of where God was leading me. And so I stepped out through. It's interesting to share these things, because depending on where somebody's coming from and where their grit is, I may say something that sounds totally whack and out there, but I literally had people come to me and say, "Hey, I feel like you've been praying about starting a business and God says you've got a green light." People that didn't even know me that well. And as I was literally asking God, like, should I do this? Do I have a green light to do this? And so it was almost even in my exact words that this came back to me. And just, there was like a number of those experiences. So part of it was, I felt like if I stayed where I was at, my family would be fine. They'd be taken care of. But I felt like God was challenging me to think beyond my family. And really, one of the things is I have a giving fund set up with a group called National Christian Foundation. And, through that, you can write grants and also invest the money and grow it so that later you can write bigger grants. And so I've got that set up. And so any revenue that I get in, is going through there, at least 10% off the top. And, we support Hope International, which is a, microfinance group that works in many nations, and they help widows and people that don't have access to opportunities to get their own little business started. And they also care for their souls and care for their personal development. And there's a group called Compassionate Hope Foundation that rescues people, kids from sex trafficking and child soldiers. Just crazy stuff that should never go on in the world, right? But you can get somebody out of that, but then you gotta love them back to life and get them back to a place of wholeness and healing. And so they do that work. And there's some counseling ministries, adoption ministries. There's just different things that my family and I are passionate about. And so, it's just something that I feel like I can do more financially as a business owner. But part of it too is the people. I love working with people who have a need and building relationships long term. I've met so many interesting people through the years, and I enjoy that. That's a driver for me, is just the relationship side of it. It's challenging. There's always different search assignments, so you learn and grow. It's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's an awesome testimony. It's like I like to say, we're blessed to be a blessing, and God tends
Absolutely.
to work through others to provide blessings. This isn't if somebody prays that they need like some extra funds or something, suddenly like God uses his magical transporter and beams down $1,000, to their place. He uses his people to help with that. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely. It is a journey of faith. And even starting a business, even for somebody who would say, I'm not religious in any way, like, it takes faith to start a business. It takes faith to put yourself out there, a certain amount of faith just to have the hope that you're going toward a good outcome, because it's challenging. It's not easy to go out there and develop the business, deliver the business, manage all the process. It takes a certain amount of grit and devotion.
Challenging is one word. Another one that I would say is scary.
Yeah, sure.
When I first started, I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I had good mentors. I had good folks that I could talk to, people who were praying for me, people who were working with me and giving me advice. But ultimately, when all was said and done, it came down to being still scared, but putting the faith in the Lord. So, well,
Absolutely.
how, we in information security, I always ask this question because, and I'm not sure if it's applicable here, because information security can be really stressful. In fact, I just on LinkedIn this morning, I reshared a article about stress in information security professionals' lives. I think like 63% or something say that they're overstressed, which is not a good thing. It's not a good thing health wise, production wise, spiritually wise.
Yeah.
How stressful is your field?
It can be very stressful. Yeah.
So how do you deal with the stress?
Yeah, you commit to the process. You know that if you serve others well, and you stay active enough and busy enough that the outcomes are going to go in your favor eventually. You also need to build in reserves financially, emotionally, spiritually, time wise. You don't run wide open all the time. You got to stay healthy, you got to exercise and start your days, I would say in prayer, but just having quiet reflection. I mean, you can't run wide open all the time, but you got to be really intentional with the time you do have so that you can be effective. I think that's something in there is the key.
Every morning, since you said start your day in prayer, I have done this enough now that it becomes, it's even beyond a habit. It's just as natural as having the first cup of coffee in the morning. In fact, with my first cup of coffee, I will do my daily Bible reading. We do at my church every year. We do you probably do something similar. These
Yeah,
are the passages to read, and if you do this every day,
you
you
get through it.
go through the
Yeah.
entire Bible in a year. And I've been doing that for several years now. But in the beginning, it used to be something I got to do, something I got to do. Just like anything, when you try to like develop a habit. But now it's like what I find is that it centers me for the day. It reminds me of my purpose for the day.
Mhm.
So I
Absolutely.
totally agree with that.
Well, you got to be anchored to something too that's not subject to fluctuations, right? I mean, because in business you've got all these highs and all these lows. I mean, just last week I was, this close to a major deal that didn't work out. But then I know this week I've got another one that's really close. So it's just like, when you decide that you're going to serve people well, you got to just be willing to ride the waves of all of that.
So what are your future plans? So you've been independent now for about what 8 months, give or take?
No, no, I'm much earlier into it. I'm like 2 months into it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we've been talking about it. I thought it
That's
was
okay.
longer
No,
than
it's been
that.
great. I've already got 4 or 5 customers and a bunch of searches. I mean, it's going fantastic. But it's still a process to get it off the ground. But no, I mean, so I've been 15 years into recruiting. I'll finish out my career in recruiting. I don't have plans to do anything else professionally speaking. I think what I'd like to do with this firm is, when you're new into something, you're going to take work sometimes based on relationships. I mean, I've got a few searches right now that are outside of cyber. I really, as we go, I just want to continue narrowing in the plow, and really focusing in this area. With that said, I do have a CMMC role and a cloud security role. So I mean, I'm definitely playing in the market right now, but I'd like to really make this a first class, first name you think of company for cybersecurity recruiting. I'd love to build a team to support me. I've got a lot of outsourcing and automation and things right now, but I'd love to eventually have employees working with me because I'd like to give people the same opportunity I had to come up and grow in this field because it's a great field to get into. Obviously, love to grow the giving fund I've talked about. My wife and I are also, we're certified in something called Restoring the Foundations Ministry. It's a counseling healing type ministry that helps a lot of people. It's fantastic. And so, as I mature the business, I'd like to be able to have a little bit more time to devote to that over the years. But those are the plans for now.
So the website for a key resource group is krgnow.com. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you coming on. It
My
was a
pleasure.
great story and just great testimony, and wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much, Greg.
All right. And thanks to everybody else, and stay secure.